Hello and welcome to lesson 4 of GCSE history. Today we will be looking at what you will study for paper 2 at GCSE. So as we have done for the last few lessons, please start the lesson by completing the knowledge quiz on the Google form. Please press pause while you complete the quiz. Okay, so today we are looking at paper 2, Shaping the Nation. Now this paper encompasses Britain, Health and the People. This is our depth study, and as well as Norman England from 1066 to 1100. So for the medicine paper, we look at 4 separate sections. So medicine stands still, the Renaissance, the beginnings of change, a revolution in medicine before we move on to modern medicine. Now, the idea of this course is that you will gain a detailed understanding of how medicine and public health evolved in Britain over the course of centuries. This will give you a broad picture of causes, scale, nature, and consequences of short and long-term developments and their impacts on British society. So we start off looking at the medieval period, where religion had a big influence on knowledge and supernatural ideas were often used. Public health was almost non-existent. People drank wine and beer because open sewers ran into rivers and therefore affected the drinking water. Streets were filled with dead animals, rotting food, and human waste, which obviously has a huge impact on the health of the population. We then move on to look at the Renaissance period. So during the Renaissance, there was the Great Plague in 1665. We then have the Black Death in the Middle Ages, and there have been some improvements since the Black Death when people were beginning to treat the Great Plague. We see the discovery that the blood circulates around the body. New surgical methods are beginning to be attempted, particularly in treating gunshot wounds. We then move on and look at a revolution in medicine, so 1750 to around 1900. Now, during this time, there is a big improvement in public health. We see the passing of public health acts to improve living conditions. We also see a transformation in surgery and gaining a better understanding of things like vaccinations and the development of antiseptics. And finally, we move on to the 20th and into the 21st centuries, where we look at advances which were made as a direct result of warfare, so World War One and World War Two. We also look at the creation of the NHS, as well as scientific discoveries such as DNA, which have huge implications on public health. Now, the other unit in this paper is the Norman Conquest. So we look at the arrival of the Normans and the establishment of their rule. Now, this depth study focuses on major aspects of Norman rule. So we look at economic, religious, political, social, and cultural standpoints of this period. We look at the struggle for the English throne through the battles of Fulford Gate, Stamford Bridge, and then finally the Battle of Hastings. We discover what life was like under the new king, the implementation of the feudal system, how he had to deal with revolts, and the influence and change he had over the legal system, architecture, and even church reforms. So today we're going to look at a section which crosses over between the two units, Norman towns and medieval health. Now, the Norman period is part of the wider medieval era. And so on the screen, you can see a picture of a Norman town and see what it was like. You can see a wall around the perimeter with a guarded gateway. Now, this was for the protection of the citizens. In the picture, you can also make out a church, as religion played an important part in medieval culture. You can also see people washing clothes in the river, while others are dumping their waste out of windows onto the street or even into that same river where people are trying to wash their clothes. Furthermore, you can see the narrow streets with pictures above the shops to show what they were. Now, most people at this time could not read or write, so pictures were a really great way of showing what a particular shop was trying to sell. You can also see things like the marketplace. You've then got in the corner of the picture the farmland where strip farming took place. This meant that there was crops growing at all times and different ones, which enabled food to get to the village more easily. Now, Towns in general at this time, with some exceptions, are quite dirty places. We've got open drains, overflowing cesspits, polluted drinking water are all common. Some towns do have public baths where people bathe together in large wooden tubs, but not all of them. Now, there is no level of local authority which organises the removal of rubbish. So, unlike today, where we're used to rubbish being collected once a week or once a fortnight, this just simply didn't happen. Leather tanners uh, often work in the towns and they use dangerous chemicals which they then dump into the rivers. The rivers are where people wash their clothes, collect their drinking water from. So, this is a huge problem. Also, at this time, no one expects the king or central government to make laws about public health or raise taxes. So, any improvements that were made to towns were paid for by the rich individuals. Butchers left rotting meat and waste products in the street. Cesspits, so where you store your waste, are usually built next to drinking wells or can go into the river, and the sewage therefore leaks into those drinking wells. Now, you could buy water from water sellers. However, it's often taken from those same polluted rivers where waste and chemicals are going into. So it's obviously not good for you. Now, people do know that changes need to happen, but they also know that improvements are expensive and councils don't want to become unpopular by increasing local taxes. So often nothing is done in a town unless there is a serious outbreak of a disease. So your tasks for today are going to be completed as normal on the Google Doc. Your first job is to use the text and the picture that are on the Google Doc to describe what a Norman town was like. So try and give me some detailed subject knowledge. Tell me what there is. Give me evidence from the picture. Please ensure that you're answering in full sentences. Try and aim for a good sized paragraph of around 8 sentences. Your second task is to colour code the statements. You have a series of statements about health in a medieval town. Now you need to decide whether the statement is showing good or bad public health. So you can use the highlighter function for this task like we have done in previous lessons. If you can't use the highlighter function or have any issues, you can just simply type in the boxes good or poor. Public health, remember, refers to the health and well-being of the population as a whole. Okay, so we're looking at, is this a good thing for people's health or is this going to cause them problems? And your third task is to describe what health was like in a medieval town. Now you're going to use the statements you've been color coding to help you with this. Try and give me some detail in your answer and make sure you are writing in full sentences. So while you give this a go, please press pause and ensure you are completing this on the Google Doc. Now, your final task is to open the Google Doc called Exam Question. So you're now going to answer the following 8-mark exam question. Explain why Norman towns mostly had a poor standard of public health. So for this, you need 3 peel paragraphs, which explain the 3 features of a town and why this would affect people's health. So remember, the Normans are part of the medieval period, and therefore you can use your color-coded tables to help you complete this task. You simply need to pick 3 features that you have color-coded as being a bad or a poor feature, and then write 3 paragraphs based on those answers. Make sure your answers are in full sentences. There are also some example sentence starters on the Google Doc to use if you need them. But if you want to write your own, that is completely fine. So once you've finished, make sure you submit all your work onto the Google Classroom. Well done for today, and we will see you next lesson.